So before we start the video, I'd like to ask you guys to please consider subscribing to the channel and liking the video, as it helps the channel grow. So, let's get into it. Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today we will be continuing our series on looking through every MLB division and ranking the teams in that division from best to worst. Today we will be covering the AL Central, probably the most contested and controversial division in baseball in my opinion. Before we get started, I just want to let you guys know that this will not be like an in-depth breakdown of which players have better WAR or all these advanced metrics. This will just be my personal opinion that is not subject to change. I did see you guys like this last video, so that's why I'm continuing it. I have a multitude of sources on the screen. As you can see, we'll be going off the Dakota ratings and then see if I agree with it, see if I don't agree with it. Go through the teams in the AL Central, see what they did in the offseason, and see what they added, see what they lost, and ultimately give my opinion at the end of the video, rank the teams from best to worst, and yeah, all that good stuff. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's get straight into it. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining me on this another fine presentation with your boy KT. Today, like I said before, we are covering the AL Central. Well, I think is the most controversial division just because of the level of teams that are good in the division, except for one. This division will probably be hotly contested between 4 teams, as you can see on the screen. We're going to cover those 5 teams in those divisions in this division. Note before we start, do not take this personally. It is just ultimately my opinion. You can disagree with me in the comment section, or you can agree or disagree. We'll be going through all the prospects, all the depth charts. I won't be going too in-depth. I don't want to make this video forever. I also will be recording this in segments. So, yeah. If you guys like these videos, please let me know in the comment section. Make sure you guys are liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and hitting that notification bell so you get notified every time I drop one of these MLB videos. Going to start doing these a lot more on the channel. And, yeah. Without further ado, everybody, let's get straight into it. All right, coming in at number 5 is the Chicago White Sox. And this team, I don't even know where to start with this team. This team is going to be the worst team in the AL Central. It might be the worst team in all of baseball. This team, the Chicago White Sox, are absolutely awful, man. And it showed all last season, and it's about to get worse. They got worse this offseason. There's so many questions about this dang White Sox team, and I'm not a White Sox fan. I'm a Cubs fan, so this might sound biased to White Sox fans, but I'm just telling the truth. There's so many questions about this White Sox team that I don't have the answer to. I don't even think the people in management have the answer to. Who's going to be the day one starter? Who's going to be the closer? Where's the offense going to come from? How's their defense going to look? Is it going to be as bad as last year? What's going to happen with the stadium? Are the White Sox going to move? So many questions with this team. How's Chris Get's management style going to be? So many questions with this team that are going to go unanswered or are just going to be absolutely horrible. The Chicago White Sox did not do much this offseason. They did add guys like Josh Rojas. They added guys like Michael A. Taylor, Mike Tauchman. They added a guy in Joey Gallo, who was signed a couple days ago. They got some young prospects as well. Colson Montgomery is a guy that's going to get a lot of praise from that organization. But at the same time, they lost a big piece in Garrett Crochet. They lost Yohan Moncada as well, if you want to consider that a loss. They traded away Eloy Jimenez because he couldn't stay healthy last year. Gavin Sheets is gone. Mike Clevenger left. Even though these guys weren't great options, they were better than what they currently have now. They don't have a single player on this team that I can just clearly say, okay, that's a guy you want to build around. They have some guys on that team. Maybe Andrew Vaughn can take a step forward this season. Maybe, Luis Robert can finally, regain his form that he had in his rookie season. Andrew Benintendi, maybe he won't be so bad this year. Even though he's kind of a bad contract in my opinion. They got James Karinchak. who could be possibly their closer, but if I'm being honest, man, this team right here, this White Sox team right here, I don't see them winning more than 60 games this season. They might. Pacoda currently has them slotted at 61.9. I have them winning less. This team is clearly going to be one of the worst teams in the division. It's probably going to be one of the worst teams in all of baseball. I don't think they get a top 10 pick this year either, because they had one last year, I think. But don't quote me on that. I don't know, White Sox fans. It's bad out there in the South Side, man. They're talking about moving the team. The team don't want to spend no money. They don't have many young players that are ready to play just yet. They have so many questions. The roster construction is not good. I could go on and on. This could become a 30-minute video about the Chicago White Sox, but I'm going to leave it at this. The White Sox are clearly going to be one of the worst teams in that division. They're probably going to be one of the worst teams in all of baseball. So many questions. Hopefully they can get it together on the South Side. As a Cubs fan, it's always interesting to see, when we play them in the crosstown series. But so far, it just hasn't been all that competitive as this team. And we saw it all last year. This team was there were moments that it was just so embarrassing to watch this team rep the city of Chicago. So, the White Sox are going to be the worst team in this division for sure. Coming in at number 4 in the AL Central this year will be the Minnesota Twins, in my opinion. Now, this is the first thing I actually disagree with Pacoda on. The Pacoda actually has the Minnesota Twins finishing first in that division. I am not too sure about that. The Minnesota Twins didn't really have all that busy of an offseason. They added some guys like Harrison Bader. They added Ty France as well, a good first baseman, good utility first baseman. Harrison Bader going to provide a lot of speed in that outfield. They also got a relief pitcher in Danny Colombe, but they lost a few pieces. They lost Max Kepler. They lost Caleb Thibaugh. Anthony DeStefani left as well, and Carlos Santana left as well. Not big losses, but big enough to be, some certain positions were bigger than other. I think the loss of Max Kepler really kind of hurts their lineup a little bit. I do like Max Kepler. I do think Carlos Santana was time to get up off him as well. But I'm not really all that sure about letting go of relief pitchers like that either. But this Minnesota Twins team, on paper, is good. Guys like Pablo Lopez, their ace starter, man. He had trade rumors around him for a long time, didn't get traded. Joe Ryan coming in at number 2 for their starter number 2. They got a good starting pitching staff when they stay healthy. They upped the bullpen with the aforementioned Danny Colombe. They got a good closer in Johan Duran. And if you look at the lineup they got, they should be better than what they are. Always going to get some production from Carlos Correa, who was signed a couple years ago. Byron Buxton, he's a good player when healthy, but Royce Lewis had a good year last year. On paper, this team should win a lot of games. Unfortunately, this team always disappoints when the pressure is on. In my opinion, the Minnesota Twins are probably one of the most inconsistent teams of all of baseball. We've seen the Minnesota Twins make playoff appearances one year and then absolutely stink it up the next year. This team right here can never stay healthy. Byron Buxton is always hurt. Carlos Correa didn't have that great of a year last year, in my opinion. They're relying on maybe if Royce Lewis continues his pace, maybe they win a few more games. I just don't see how they're better than both the Royals or the Tigers in that division. Now, you could disagree with me, but this team can never stay healthy. I kind of feel like management can be kind of shaky at times with that team. This team always finds a way to disappoint you somehow. I don't agree with the fact that they're going to finish number 1 in the AL Central when you have the Tigers, the Guardians, and the Royals. We're probably all going to be maybe better this year. And they didn't really add too much this offseason. They got a good roster going into the season. So we'll see, but I'm not sure that this team is just 10 times better than the other teams on this list. They're asking a lot of Byron Buxton to stay healthy, Carlos Correa to regain his previous form. Even though he didn't have a terrible year, he still didn't have the year that I expected him to have, and that's putting a lot of pressure on Royce Lewis as well. But man, I don't think this Minnesota Twins team is going to be that much better. I don't see them winning 87 games. I think I might see them winning 80, but we'll see. I think just the fact that this team stays hurt, Pablo Lopez kind of stays hurt a little bit. The bullpen can be shaky at times, and just overall the way the Minnesota Twins just operate, man, it makes it frustrating to watch them, because you think this team would be so much better than it is, and the fact that they lost some pieces and didn't add much to replace those pieces. They basically added Harrison Bader and Danny Colombe, and that, I don't think that's enough to compete in that division. But hey, this is just my opinion. You can disagree with it. I think that the Minnesota Twins are probably going to be the fourth best team in that division. I just think there are teams better than them in that division. So yeah, I think number 4 on my list would definitely be the Minnesota Twins. All right, number 3, the Cleveland Guardians, man. This Guardians team is projected to be pretty good. They're projected to finish 3rd in the division anyway. I'm not currently sure if they're slotted to win 79 wins on the season. I'm not sure where I have their win total being. I think they're going to be a little bit better than 79 wins. They don't have them finishing over 500. I don't see why. This team is stacked from top to bottom, especially in the bullpen and with their starting pitching unit. Starter clearly going into the year would be Tanner Bibby. Had a strong season last year, picking up 12 wins. Had a 3.8 ERA, if I'm not mistaken. They got a good young pitcher in Tristan McKenzie. I think he's always a great pitcher to have. Ben Lively, he started number 2. Gavin Williams. Maybe if Shane Bieber is healthy come, the first week of the season or the first few weeks of the season, he gets back in that starting pitching lineup. They have a strong bullpen with the dominant closer, Emmanuel Clase. They signed Paul Sewald in the offseason. John Means, he'll probably be moved around, maybe starter, bullpen, maybe. Hunter Gaddis, still a pretty good setup pitcher for them. They got a strong bullpen, and they got some strong position players as well. Bo Naylor, always interesting to see what he does this season. Lost his brother Josh in the offseason, but they replaced Josh with Carlos Santana. Again, a little bit older, not the same Carlos Santana as previously before. Made his way back to Cleveland. Somehow Carlos Santana is always keeping his name in the league. Of course, you got Jose Ramirez still sitting there, still one of the best players, the best third baseman of all of baseball. The swaggy Jose Ramirez. I might show a graphic on the screen on what happened, why I like Jose Ramirez so much. When he knocked out Tim Anderson, it was just the funniest thing ever. This little short dude, Dominican dude, knocking out Tim Anderson. That's besides the point. He's a great player. He's always going to produce, so that always keeps Cleveland in the running. They have Stephen Kwan, who was really, really good last year. He was also an all-star. Lane Thomas and Tyler Freeman should be splitting, some time in center field, with Lane Thomas taking up most of the time in center field. Had a very, very strong year last year as well. And I just think this team is definitely better than what Pacoda is giving them credit for. While they didn't add much in the offseason, they just improved on the fringes of their roster. They improved their bullpen. They replaced, losing Josh Naylor does kind of hurt them a little bit. At the same time, I do think the replacement with Carlos Santana shouldn't be too much of a downgrade. I think this team, if it can stay healthy and it continues to produce, they have Brian Rocchio at shortstop. He's probably going to be getting most of the playing time at shortstop. This team should be really, really good, man. I really think this team should be good. They have a strong pitching staff. Hopefully they can all stay healthy. They got a strong bullpen. This team could definitely make some damage in the AL Central. I just don't think they're better than the Royals or the Tigers, just for a few reasons. It's not like big reasons, especially the Royals, man. I think the Royals might be the best team in that division, and we'll get to that. But yeah, this team is strong on paper, man. I really like the Cleveland Guardians. They always find a way to get themselves into a wild card position and get themselves into a playoffs. Jose Ramirez is making all-star teams every year. They got a strong bullpen. They got strong starters. Decent defense as well. Good speed on the base pass. They got some pieces on that Cleveland team. It's just a matter of health and guys performing up to the standards. At the same time, I just don't think they're better than the Royals or the Tigers, in my opinion, for a few reasons. But definitely, this could be definitely a sleeper team in that division. Don't be surprised if the Cleveland Guardians shock everybody and try to win that division, as I just think Dakota isn't giving them near enough credit for their roster construction and what they could be doing going into the season. So if you ask me, I still think Cleveland finishes third just because of Detroit and Kansas City, but I could easily be wrong. They don't have that many top prospects coming, if I'm not mistaken. I can check one more time. Not too many top prospects coming to the league. Travis Bazana and Chase Dulatter could definitely make their debuts this season if the time calls for it, but there's no rush. They're strong in the outfield position, and I think they're content right now with their second base position as of right now. So I can definitely see this team finishing third in the division. I can definitely see this team definitely shocking everybody and winning that division as well. So yeah, that would be my team, my sleeper team for this division. All right, coming in at number 2, I have the Detroit Tigers being second place in that division. This was a thing I was going back and forth all week about who was going to be better, who's going to win that division between the Royals and the Tigers. I finally made my complete decision. I think the Tigers are going to finish just under the Kansas City Royals in the AL Central. Now, many people are suspicious about the Detroit Tigers this season. Most people think they would take a big step back, considering what production they get out of some of these players on this team. Some guys had very good years last year, and most people are kind of predicting they would take a step back. But on paper, if you want to ask on paper, this is probably one of the better teams in all of baseball, in my opinion. The pitching is led by Tarek Skubal, who there's not much to be said about this dude, man. He's good. Definitely one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. Had a strong year. Last year, only 28 years old. Stays healthy. He's definitely going to be a problem. Reese Olson, Casey Mize. They re-signed Jack Flaherty. They added Alex Cobb, even though he's older. Kenta Maeda is in that bullpen. They got a good setup man in Tommy Canhill. They got a closer. They got very good bullpen, a solid bullpen. So their pitching staff is definitely, I don't see their pitching staff, unless it's injured to hell and back, I don't see that taking too much of a step back. The main question is going to come from the offensive side of this team. They did add some pieces. Gleyber Torres was one of the pieces that they added to play second base. Jace Jung, I don't know if he was on the team last year, but he was a piece that came over. I think he was on Texas the last time I saw him. He's another addition that they had to that lineup. I think they're strong at certain places. They got, I think the two main spots that I'm probably worried about is first base and shortstop, as Colt Keith is considered the guy that's going to be playing most of the plate appearances at first base. He did play there last year. Didn't have the best rookie season, but he had a strong one, hitting 260 last year as well. If he can continue building on what progress that he made, only 22 years old, he continue on the progress that he's making, he would be a good player. They say Spencer Torkelson could make the roster coming up. They have the Gleyber Torres that they just added. Maybe he can regain his previous form. Jace Jung is a great option at third base. They also have Zach McKinstry, who's a great utility man who can basically play anywhere that you ask him to. Third base, Andy Ibanez will also back up McKinstry or in Jung, so he can be there at certain points. The shortstop position, I'm a little bit worried about that. Trey Sweeney didn't have that strong of a year last year. And Javier Baez has definitely fallen off a cliff from what his previous form was. I'm not saying they're bad options, but they're not as good as that Royals infield, in my opinion. Riley Green is the star of this lineup, in my opinion. Had a very solid 2023. Very solid 2024. Kind of went under the radar as far as left fielders go. Parker Meadows will round out the center fielder position. Had a strong year as well. They have Winsell Perez playing most of the time in right field. They also have Matt Vierling, and Kerry Carpenter will be the DH. I think he had a strong year as well last year. Ultimately, this whole Detroit Tigers team is just relying on guys to regain their forms as last year and staying healthy. Maybe getting some more production out of that shortstop position. Sliding Gleyber Torres to this team should add a lot more power to the lineup. If he can regain his previous form that he had in New York. Those first few seasons with the Yankees, still got a strong pitching staff. Still got I think he's the Cy Young last year, Tariq Skubal. If he stays healthy, Detroit's always going to have a chance. They came within one game of the ALCS, but I can understand the skepticism with Detroit. They can take that sophomore slump, and have guys slump this year, and maybe some guys don't play as well, and that could contribute to why the Dakota rankings have them so low. But on paper, this team is definitely going to be one of the better teams in that division, in my opinion. It's just a matter of, can those guys continue building off what they had last year? Can guys stay healthy? Can they get some, consistent play from that shortstop position? Maybe Javier Baez regains his older form as well. Gleyber Torres will add some pop into that lineup. And you can't underestimate an AJ Hinch-led team. So, this team should definitely, on paper, finish number 2 in the division. It's just a matter of guys staying healthy and, playing up to their potential in this division, and continuing to build off what they had last year. So ultimately, that weighed into my decision. I just think their infield is not as strong, especially in the shortstop and second base positions, as a team like the Kansas City Royals. So ultimately, that played a factor on why I think the Detroit Tigers will finish 2 in the AL Central. All right, at number 1. Finishing number 1 in the AL Central will probably be the Kansas City Royals, man. Had a very strong season last year, and I think they're going to improve off that. They made a lot of good additions in the offseason, signing Jonathan India and getting a good reliever in Carlos Estevez, who can provide a few extra innings. But they re-signed Cole Reagans. They have a strong starting pitching staff. Seth Lugo had a really strong year last year. They had Michael Wacha. They did trade away Brady Singer to get Jonathan India. They got Michael Lorenzen. They got Alec Marsh. They got Michael Wacha. They got Chris Bubik. So it is going to be a strong starting pitching staff. Cole Reagans definitely the guy that I think is probably a better pitcher that goes under the radar a lot. They re-signed him this year. In fact, they just re-signed him recently. But I think the strength of this team is going to be its offense, man. Its offense is going to be pretty good. Salvador Perez, a guy that's been playing for a very, very long time, continues to produce every single year. They got good production last year from Vinny Pasquantino. Don't know why Michael Macy would be playing over Jonathan India, but I'm pretty sure they had some good production from him as well. They went and got the aforementioned Jonathan India. They're pairing him with the dominant shortstop and Bobby Witt Jr., who is by no question one of the best young players in all of baseball, in my opinion. MJ Melendez will be rounding out that left fielder spot. Kyle Isbell had a really strong year last year. They still have Hunter Renfroe, who I think should be more of in a DH role. Nelson Velasquez had a strong start to the year. Let's see if he can build off of what he had for the start of the year last year. this team is definitely, I feel like this team is definitely stronger because of the infield that they have. Michael Garcia, it will be rounding out that third base position, and I think he had a really good year last year as well. There's not too many questions about, experience in this Kansas City Royals lineup. Bobby Witt Jr. will lead with power. He's definitely one of the best young shortstops and best young players in all the league. They get power from Hunter Renfroe, good defense and a good bat from Jonathan India. Vinny Pasquantino hits for contact. Good defense. Salvador Perez, you're always going to get that defense and that power from him. This team is definitely a good team. It's not top heavy. They got good depth at every single position. They got good versatility at different positions. They can swap guys in and out of the lineup and pay guys in different positions when they want to. Strong starting pitching staff. Hopefully Seth Lugo can continue what he had last year. He started pretty well last year, and he was decent for them for the majority of the year. Cole Reagans, if he can continuing his path to being an all-star and all that, and they got Michael Wacha. It's a decent starting lineup. I hate that they had to give up Brady Singer to get Jonathan India. But, it's Jonathan India. He's still young, 28 years old. He can play multiple positions. I kind of see him slotted at the second base position over Michael Macy. But we'll see. But, I just look at this lineup and I just see power, contact. They got speed. They got defense. So, the infield is strong. I think this team is definitely going to be the best team in that division. I don't think Pacoda agrees with me per se. They have the Twins going number one in that division. But you can never count out a team that has Salvador Perez on it, who continues to produce every single year. I think Bobby Witt Jr. will take another step forward this year. There was just a point in the year where he was going crazy. They're going to get production from Hunter Renfroe. You're going to get production from the newly acquired Jonathan India. I think this team is definitely strong. I don't see a reason why they wouldn't continue their pace from last year. I do think that Kansas City middle infield is a little bit better than Detroit, and they're not really relying on too many unknowns like that. So that's why I have Kansas City finishing first. But it could definitely go between them and Detroit, in my opinion. Their pitchers are a lot stronger. If I would say their pitchers are a little less strong than their hitting lineup, and that's what's going to carry this team a lot more. Is definitely going to be their lineup and their offense. But maybe if Seth Lugo can start the year well, Cole Reagan stays on the path, and maybe you can get something out of Alec Marsh and Michael Wacha in this point of his career, maybe you got a good shot. They also got Michael Lorenzen, who's a capable starter or reliever, guy you can play anywhere. They got a good setup man in Carlos Estevez, so I can see this team definitely winning this division. I feel like they are the best put together team in this division, so yeah, I have the Kansas City Royals finishing number one in this division. But overall, man, it's a strong division outside of the Chicago White Sox. It's a strong division. All these teams are slotted around the average 80 win mark. They got similar play styles. They got similar, roster construction. Each of these teams has a strength. Their pitching is strong. This division is definitely a little bit more competitive outside of the Chicago White Sox, of course. But this division could definitely be more competitive. I could see Kansas City, Cleveland, Detroit winning that division. In my opinion, there's a lot of sleeper teams in this division. There's a lot of unknowns in this division. Overall, I think it's a lot stronger than this NL counterpart. But definitely, we'll see how the season plays out for these teams. I'm really excited to see how this division shapes out, as it was strong last year, man. So yeah, that's going to do it for this video. In the next MLB video, we will be doing the AL West, which should be an interesting division to talk about coming forward. So yeah, So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel and liking the videos. It helps the channel grow. Make sure you guys hit the notification bell so you get notified every time I drop one of these baseball videos. I apologize if my video wasn't in depth, or I wasn't going through specific standings, or if I said, or specific players and reading through their WAR and all that. I apologize if, if it seems like I missed some guys, or I might have overrated some guys. I'm just a casual baseball watcher. I love baseball, but I live in Chicago, so I can't watch every single team on TV. So if you were looking for a more in-depth prediction video for the standings, I apologize. But make sure you guys follow me on social media. There's bound to be more baseball news coming out. Of course, we had the recent signing of Alex Bregman, so that was a shock. He went to Boston. That might change their win total a little bit. So I'm excited about this MLB season, man. I hope you guys are too. But I'm gonna get up out of here. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'm out. Peace.